Welcome to episode 4 of the 200 movie challenge. We're getting through these, Soto. Can you believe it? I mean, I think we
Yeah.
got 5 films to talk about today, but yeah, I think this number is a little bit bigger than I expected to
Yeah.
start off
No,
with.
I don't know what I've been doing all these years. It seems like it's pretty easy to do. Thank God for the weekends. That's what I have to say because that's usually when I get most of these in. But yeah, I'm surprised. This is some serious output. I thought this would be more of a challenge than what it's been so far. But two feels pretty good. Sometimes three. I think we're on a pretty good pace.
We are, and each week we've been flip flopping. So I'm going to go first, but Soto, before I talk about these movies, I
Hmm.
kind of want to do something we have not done on this series. And I know I didn't even talk to you about this, but I kind of want to
Oh,
bring this
geez.
up. I need to make a correction. So
Oh,
last week we were talking about, I was talking about Beetlejuice.
yeah.
And I know my wife gave me a little shit. She thought it was better. I'm like, no, my statement stands to what I said about Beetlejuice. And the thing is, when I watch a movie, I try to, grade it or put it in the ranking system right afterwards and think about it because I'm like, okay, it's fresh in my mind. But I'm a mailman, and in my mail truck, I think a lot. And
Hmm.
I know you brought up, my old ass. And
Hmm.
the thing is, it's like this list should be about my enjoyment of movies. I know I'm not. This is not what might be the best movie, but it's like how I enjoy it. And I was looking back, I'm like, you're right. Yes, even though my old ass fell apart at the end, it was still an enjoyable film. And Beetlejuice, because of what came before that, should be a lot worse. It should have been a lot better, I mean, but it should fall down. So I'm telling you right now,
Yeah.
I am flip flopping my old ass and Beetlejuice. My old ass is going above Beetlejuice. I had them flip flop, and now
Wow.
I feel confident with my list. I'm liking it because it's like the top I enjoy. Middle. I was like they're memorable. I might not watch again. And then don't get me wrong, like I've said it, my old ass. We're not going to talk about this movie in 5 years. This is not going to be
Sure.
something down the line where like that was a great fucking film.
Yeah.
No, it was a good one, and I did like it. Yes, I had problems at the end, but it was definitely better than Beetlejuice. So after careful consideration, I'm not saying
Interesting.
we should do this all the time, but I'm like, it's still within the week.
It'll happen. It'll happen
I
again.
know, but I'm like,
It's just
and
going
then
to.
I felt very confident about my list. I'm like, I like where my list was. It felt right. Because I don't want to bash my old ass. And I know this
It's
out
a
of context,
strange,
this is.
strange way to put that.
But so let me get to my first movie.
Hmm.
I know I kind of teased this in the last couple of videos. My wife wanted me to watch this film with her. I'm like, all right,
Oh
I am
yeah,
in. And the first film I watched was Les Miserables. And so she, part of her class, she's taught this. They've, read the book. She's
yeah,
read it multiple times. She's told me, like, the translation from French to English is not that great, but, so I knew a few things. And also the musical, the stage production before I get to the film, what makes it different is every line is sung. And that I mean, how in a lot of musicals there's dialogue and then they bust out on the song,
yeah.
dialogue, but this whole
Yeah.
thing is song. So I know, love it or
Thank
hate it, for
God.
some people that's fine. I'm fine with musicals. That being said, this was actually a really good film, Soto, because not only is every line sung,
Mm,
they did not do a sound studio. They did this while filming.
sure.
So it's not like they're lip syncing. This is one of the first times a movie has attempted that, and I was impressed. Anne Hathaway has a killer song. Like after she was done, I'm like, holy shit, she has chops. And I looked up; she actually won Best Supporting Actress for this film. Um,
Wow.
and I was like, because Anne Hathaway, she did some. I know she has some good acting credits, Brokeback Mountain and stuff like that. But she, came from Disney. But I'm watching this, like I was moved during her performance. Like this is fucking amazing. Um, but yeah, I enjoyed it. Hugh Jackman was great. Russell Crowe was kind of robotic, but it kind of fit his character, so I'm going to kind of accept it. So I did like this. Now, so I'm going to say this,
Hmm.
and this is now my gripe with the film. If there's a little gripe to it, I know me and you joke about movies being too long.
Yeah.
Now, this movie was
I
two
was
and a half
wondering this.
hours. This movie was like 2.5 hours.
That's not too bad.
So this movie probably needed 30 minutes more. I'm
Oh
dead serious. I
God
think if this
Almighty.
movie was a little longer, some of the characters might have had more development. Now, me and you have watched a lot of movies, and again, a lot of this story I've heard from my wife, so I kind of know some context to it. But at the same time, I have to look at it from just what the film is presented to me.
Hmm.
And I'm like, there are some characters that could have used maybe a little bit more, but it was a good watch. I liked it. The production was great. Like I said, the singing for the most part was great. Russell Crowe, great actor. I mean, I know he's kind of fallen a little bit, but he's still a fucking great actor. But he's
Yeah.
very robotic. But again, for his character, I think it kind of worked. So I was fine with it. But I was into it. I think the Anne Hathaway song, and I forget what it's called, but like I that's when I kind of clicked, and I was very toned in when she sang. So yeah, so I will admit I was a big fan of this. I like this probably a lot more than I thought I would, but I do like musicals. I know you're not a big fan of them, but I
I just
actually
don't
did
get
like them.
them. I mean, I look, I get it. I understand. I understand. I'm not like oblivious to it, but kind of like, I don't know. What have you talked about? How you don't like olives on a pizza or something like that, or black olives? We've had this conversation, of course, about food, but it's just one of those things where it's not for me. The idea of people singing their dialogue, it doesn't track for me. If you're telling me to watch a musical and it's an hour and a half, I'll probably give it a shot. But if you're telling me it's a musical and it's almost 3 hours, I'm like, I can probably do something else with my time. And I'm not trying to crap on it because I'm sure it's well done, like you said, and it's got some great cast and great actors. But it's just not my thing. I don't do musicals, and nothing against musicals at all. It's just I can't take them seriously. So everybody. Some people like vanilla ice cream. Some people like strawberry ice cream. I don't get the musical thing. So. But I'm glad it was good. I don't know what it's about. It seems sad and French
So yeah,
and
it's
blue.
yeah, the French Revolution, stuff like that. Basically, it kind of takes place throughout Hugh Jackman's life, his character. And my wife's gonna kill me because I forgot the character's name. Um, but
Wolverine.
he's in jail for about 19 years. He
Jesus.
yeah, basically because he stole some bread to feed his wife's son. So like there's
His
reasons behind
wife's
it.
son.
Yeah, his nephew. I don't know why I said it like that because of the song. Anyhow, it don't matter.
It don't
And
matter.
he gets out. He does his time, and he every year he has to like check in for parole. And I'm not going to get into great details, but one time he missed it. So they're searching for him, but he kind of was able to make a life for himself.
Hmm.
He started a business. He's American. Because mind you, this isn't like this time. So like, oh, here's this person. This is back way back in time. I say way back by a few hundred years, but so it's not easy to track down people.
Not
But
like it
then,
is
yeah,
now. Right.
not like it is now. No, but then, yes, there's some that works for him. Anne Hathaway, she kind of gets kicked out. He has nothing to do with it, but she gets kicked out. And basically he finds her on the street. She's basically become a prostitute,
Hmm.
and she's dying. And he's like, "I will take care of you. I will find your daughter and take care of her." And then it goes through that story, as this young girl is growing up. So there is a lot to it. So that's why I'm trying not to get into it. But basically, it centers around Hugh Jackman from when he, gets out of jail or does his time.
Yeah.
Basically to the end of his life. So, and yes, and I bring this up because so back to the original thing we talked about with Beetlejuice, and My Old Ass. It's like
Hmm.
this is probably the best looking movie that I've seen so far.
Hmm.
Again, I know my list isn't as great as like a Lawrence of Arabia or even Oppenheimer, but yeah, this is the best production. The acting was amazing. But then it's like I look at the enjoyment because I told my wife, I'm like, I kind of was like, do I put this before or under Uncharted? That's where I was at with this film right now. And she's like, you're going to put this below a video game movie? I'm like, maybe, because Uncharted was actually a
Well, I
very
mean, it's a
enjoyable movie.
movie. It's not like we're saying we're putting it ahead of like the play.
No,
It's
but
like if what's the movie like? Like, is the movie good? Is it not good? Like, just like you're saying.
then, like I said originally, like this list is kind of my enjoyment of the films,
Yeah.
and so I did put it right underneath Uncharted. It's above, obviously, like Terrifier and all that stuff, which I think puts it at like fourth.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was good and I enjoyed it. And like I didn't have a problem with it. I don't know if I'll ever see it again. Actually, if the stage production came around with the Broadway show, if they're still doing that, I would actually go check that out. I don't mind
Sure.
that. I know you don't, but I
I'm
don't
good
mind
with
that.
that. Yeah, I'm
I
also with
don't
that.
know if I will check out this movie again, but I can definitely respect how great of a film
I just don't
this
think
is
I
and
could
how
take
well
myself
done.
seriously if I was in an audience with something like this happening. Like, I didn't watch Hamilton. I didn't watch. I mean, I've been broke a lot of my life, and I feel like going to these stage plays and whatnot is for rich people. So I just picture a lot of rich people standing around and just watching like this and Cats and Phantom of the Opera.
Oh, that was
And
so good. I saw that.
you saw that like in the
I saw
in the
that play.
like in the
That was a
big
play.
like what at the Wang Center or something, or did you see it
Oh no,
like
this
in?
is in Minneapolis. This is I was across. This
Yeah,
was a
I
long time ago.
just yeah, I just
I
it's
know it's
just
not for you.
I don't understand. Like if somebody was like, "Hey, you want to go to a concert?" I'd be like, "Yeah, all right." I'm an old. Hopefully, I can sit down during it. And then if somebody's like, "Hey, you want to go to a musical like Book of Mormon or something?" I mean, I
Dude,
don't know.
if you get a chance to see Book of Mormon, see that. That was by far the funniest shit I have ever seen. And if you like Matt Stone and Trey Parker, come on, it is so
Yeah,
funny. They take it basically. If you're a South Park fan, yeah, you'll like Book of Mormon. It's that kind of comedy.
yeah, yeah,
People don't
maybe.
think it.
Yeah,
I'm
I
just
mean, I like Cannibal the musical. That was funny. And that was Matt Stone, Trey Parker. But that I could be in my living room. I don't have to get dressed up and then go to a show and everything like that. Maybe I just don't like crowds. Maybe that's my problem. But again, I don't know if I'll obviously Les Mis. I think Sarah might probably like something like this, but I don't know if I would.
she might, especially if she likes musicals.
Yeah,
I
she might. I have to ask her. I should actually know this about my wife. This is a problem.
we won't say.
Mhm.
Here we are recording that, but no, it was like I said, it was very good. It was well produced, and like I said, the acting was just amazing. So it's definitely high up on my list. But yeah, so right now it is a tad under Uncharted.
Maybe I'll
But
pick a musical and watch it. I have seen Moulin Rouge. That's a musical, right?
yes,
Yeah, that was all right.
yeah. All
It's like,
right,
will
so
Soto watch a musical this year? Let's see. Will it be part of his 100? I mean, there's room for it. I've been eyeing La La Land. That's a musical, right? I like
I
Ryan
think so.
Gosling.
Yes,
And if Ryan Gosling's in it, like I could probably wrap my mind around it. So we'll see. More to come. Maybe Soto will watch a musical.
I think you need to watch one, just one this year.
Okay. All right.
You
I'll
got
watch
all
one.
year. You got all year. It can be a
It's a
short
long
one, but
year, man. We're January. What a month this has been.
it has.
So holy moly.
All right, so let me get to my second film.
Hmm.
Um, so last year when we started talking about this project or doing something similar, and unfortunately fizzled out, I actually saw the fifth Scream movie on Netflix. I watched it. I've been a fan of the series. I'm like, oh, let me see kind of the new rendition of it, and I liked it. I'm not going to get into that, but that leads to the fact that just now on Netflix, Scream 6, you know, finally arrived. So I'm
Hmm.
like, fuck it. I need to watch this. I've gotten this far. So yes, my next film that I watched was Scream 6. And
Wow. There's
it
so
was so
many.
enjoyable. I will admit. I mean, I don't know when you kind of, weighed off from the Scream franchise, but
Maybe
each one,
three, I have to
obviously the
say.
first one was amazing and what it did
Sure.
to the horror
I
genre
saw the
was
second
great.
one. Yep.
Second one was good. I don't think as good
It was like
because
Billy's mom or something like that in the
yeah, well,
second one.
real quick about Scream 2, it was supposed to be a kind of a different killers. They were going to do like two or three, but the script leaked online and they had to change the ending. Everything changed, and I think that hurt Scream 2 because like Jerry O'Connell's character just kind of second half of the film just wasn't really in it as much because he was supposed to be, but they had to do rewrites. But yeah, the script got leaked, so they changed everything about that ending.
Okay.
And Scream 3, from I remember, just sucked. She had
I
like a
don't
half brother.
remember
It
that.
was horrible. It made fun of trilogies because each one, first one made fun of horror and
Sure.
sequels. And then the fourth one, I remember it came out. It was like 2010, 11, around
Good
that
lord.
area when the remakes were happening. And so
Yeah.
that was a film making fun of the remakes, brought back all the original characters. And I'm like, it was good. I liked it. It wasn't as great as, again, the first two. But the fifth and going into the sixth one was fucking well done for a horror movie
Hmm.
because they introduced new characters that you actually cared about. They didn't have to use all the older characters. I say older, but the original characters, they were not the focus of the story. The focus were they did it right. And the fifth one made fun of like legacy sequels. This one made fun of franchises. It did get a little overdrawn, but they did things in Scream 6, which they've never done in the Scream franchise, which shocked me because you kind of fall. We talked about those tropes, and they take you for a ride because you think something's going to happen. You're like, oh, this one, and quick left turn. Real quick, because every Scream starts off with what? An opening killing. Some girl's guy gets killed. However, they always start off that since Drew Barrymore. So this, again, it happens. And then the killer reveals himself. And I'm not going to go into it much. So the reveal was like, wait, what? Because you don't expect that to happen. So Scream 6
Wow.
does a lot of things differently. It actually makes you, because a lot of the movies have been, confined to a house, frat party, private rooms. Ghostface is out there in the motherfucking public, like in a mini mart, chasing down Jenna Ortega's and her older sister, Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you don't expect that because a lot of times they're trying to be quiet in the house. He comes out, guns blazing. So I like this. It did exactly what a horror movie should do. It continued the story.
Yeah.
It surprised me. Is it the best Scream? No, but as you would say, it had a beginning, middle, and end.
Oh God, it's so underrated.
And
That's all I ask.
I know, and I was along for the ride, and I know how we feel about Ghostface as an iconic killer, but this series is actually really good. They've done a lot of things right. They've done a lot of things wrong because a lot of things are a little over top here, but it's meant to be.
Yeah.
But again, I was along for the ride, and I enjoyed it, and this might be one of the gorier Screams. Some of the kills, I was like, "Oh damn!" Not Terrifier, "Oh damn," mind you. No,
I was about to say I've seen Terrifier.
No, that's
so what you talking about?
That's on a class of its own.
Terrifier
But I'm just
2.
saying,
Yeah.
not that Scream has been bloody, but there are some parts you're just like, "Oh shit!" Just again, I did not expect it from a Scream franchise. I know they're doing a seventh one, and it'll be interesting because Neve Campbell's returning. Because the two main actresses from 5 and 6 are not returning. Jenna Ortega does not want to do the series anymore. I think she's moving on. And the main actress, I guess, got fired because she made some comments about Israel. And so that was a big no-no. So they're going to come out with the Scream 7, and they're going to probably shell out a lot of money for Neve Campbell. But, we'll see when that comes. But again, Scream 6, I did enjoy.
Okay.
I would put it right above Terrifier 2, right underneath
Jesus.
Les Mis.
Really?
I had to.
It's a better horror movie than Terrifier 2?
It's a different horror movie. So at least it had a story to it.
Terrifier 2 had a story to it. What are you talking about?
It did and it didn't. There were so many plot holes in Terrifier 2.
Sure.
Which happens.
Just the violence alone, my God.
But that's the thing. This didn't rely on violence alone. So again, it's a little nostalgia, but again, I think I enjoyed it more than Terrifier. Just right above Terrifier 2. It was a tough one. This is the flip flop. It was either above or underneath. So, but I had to look at it. I think I just had more fun with Scream 6. Terrifier 2, yes, the kills were great. Definitely way better than the first one.
I wouldn't say the kills were great, but yeah.
Well, over the top. I mean, things that we have not seen in horror movies. So yes, maybe not great.
Yeah.
Not to become on some list or anything like that, but yeah, the violence of that is what we're going to remember.
I mean, as an actual film, yeah, probably Scream 6 is probably more professionally put together. I'd give you that.
Yeah, and it ended, and it had an end. Which if they weren't going to do a Scream 7, like if this literally was the last, not that after 3 or 4, like you're fine. There's no loopholes. They ended it. Everything is fine. Yes, there are some problems.
Questions.
No questions, but I mean, yes, like any horror movies, you can be like, because for example, real quick, Soda, before we get to your movies, the main, and this isn't a spoiler because they kind of introduce in 5, the main, character from these two films is actually Billy Loomis's daughter. And I start thinking what didn't he die in high school? So yes, they kind of quickly explained it and they're like, here's the rules. We're going to shove it aside, accept it or not. I'm like, all right, whatever. But yes, it's his daughter.
The rules, man. They broke the rules.
I had to throw that one in there for you.
Did he knock somebody up in high school?
He did.
Well, I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense.
But again, he was dating Neve Campbell. They never really explained how this all happened or when.
But he wanted to get off so much on he was like, I want to consummate this relationship so badly. but he had a side piece.
He
Damn,
did.
Scream 7 or Scream 6.
Five
That's
and
some
six, yeah.
retcon shit right there.
Oh yeah. Well, that's what five was about. A lot of the main characters were kind of somewhat related to someone from the original cast.
Oh
So
my god. I mean, I guess
again,
that's
a little
that's the
absurd.
trope there, you know.
It is, but again, you know what Scream does. They kind of turn it upside down. They take what you expect and do things differently, and I can respect that, even at 5 or 6. So, when Terrifier gets to 5 and 6, we'll talk.
Well, 4 is supposed to be hopefully the final one. I mean, for all
Oh,
of our sakes, but you never know.
you never know.
There's never a scary movie. There just isn't.
Well, there hasn't been a Friday the 13th in a while, but that's a lawsuit. But that's a story for another day. So, Soto, let's get to you. What was the first movie that you saw this week?
So the first movie I saw, actually, pretty sure my first documentary this year. I watched a movie that I've been meaning to watch for a long time, and it was the movie When We Were Kings. This movie tells the story of Muhammad Ali and George Foreman's big fight in Zaire, early 70s. I don't remember the exact date, but it just goes through, sort of the overall hype of the fight. Walks you through, the kind of political climate at the time, and then, through the eventual match itself, which, had Muhammad Ali as a huge underdog against George Foreman. George Foreman was an absolute monster. Um, and a lot of people thought Muhammad Ali was going to get his ass handed to him in this fight, but he ended up having George Foreman, use up his energy in a brilliant way, as we know right now, as the rope-a-dope, and eventually ended up just knocking George Foreman out. And that's really the plot of it, but just the overall documentary and everything that it just goes through. The times, it talks about some Don King stuff as well. It's a very well done documentary. I believe it won an Academy Award for a documentary in the late 90s. So it's been on my list for a while, and it was kind of, some easy lifting, and I just enjoyed it. I enjoyed the overall vibe. I think Muhammad Ali as a character and as a sports figure is one of my favorite of all time. And if you are a fan of old school boxing, I know boxing is definitely not the same as it was back then. Um, incredibly pleasurable watch. I loved it. And I just loved the way it was done. Super informative. It's one of those documentaries that is not super long. I think it's like maybe an hour and a half long, so it's in and out, but really well done. Love the music, love the vibe. A lot of the political issues that they were dealing with in the 70s was pretty much mirrors some of the stuff that we're dealing with now. And I just thought it was a very well done documentary and super enjoyable. And I think if you like boxing, especially the romantic old school boxing idea, this is a great movie to watch. And as far as where I rank it, pretty sure I had it right behind, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lawrence of Arabia, and just ahead of Terrifier 2.
Yeah.
Just for the overall quality of it. Again, I've said my piece on Terrifier 2, which lasted for 3 hours in the last video that we did. But, this was a very solid documentary. It did not have the emotional impact for me as the Jim Henson one that it has for you.
Yeah, but I grew up on those characters, so yeah, a little
Yeah,
different.
it was a good Saturday morning watch. I watched a documentary. I watched. It was informative. It was awesome, and I just love. Like I said earlier, I love Muhammad Ali, and it's funny to think about what George Foreman became too, as we kind of associate him with the Foreman Grill. But
I wasn't going to say it, but yes,
he was a ridiculous boxer, but Muhammad Ali played mind games and was able to get him to a spot where, Muhammad Ali really had no business winning that fight. George Foreman was just way stronger. But again, Muhammad Ali just goaded him and egged him on and made him use up all his energy. And by the time the fight was almost over, he was gassed. And Muhammad Ali, I'm not sure if it was his last fight. I feel like it was. People can correct me if they want. But again, as an overall movie experience and documentary, solid. If we were to use our rating systems that we used to use before, solid 8. And that's why I put it above Terrifier 2.
Interesting. And yeah, I quickly looked this up for you. Ali's last boxing match was against Trevor Berbick on December 11th,
Oh,
1981 in Nassau, Bahamas. The fight was called
yeah.
Drama in Bahama.
Now,
Um,
did Muhammad Ali win that fight? Because Muhammad Ali was kind of towards the downside of his career against George Foreman, and Trevor Berbick, I want to say he got his ass knocked out by Mike Tyson.
let's see. Ali was 39 years old at the time of the fight. The fight was chaotic with Berbick almost not fighting because he wanted more money. Hmm. I don't. I just this.
Interesting.
These are the first few things that just came up on Google.
We'll save it for the
Um,
boxing podcast.
yes. So let me ask you real quick before we go to your second movie,
Yeah.
because obviously you talked about being a fan of boxing. Personally, I am not. I've
Mhm.
tried. My stepdad was huge into boxing matches. He actually
Yeah.
liked a lot of the, because I remember Tyson fights and they were quick, but he loved a lot of the mid cards and stuff like that. So here's a quick question for you with When We Were Kings before we go to your next film.
Hmm.
Would a non boxing fan actually enjoy this? Do you think they will get something out
Yeah,
of it?
absolutely. I mean, I think if you're a boxing fan, you'll definitely get a little bit more excitement. But just overall, the story, the political climate, everything like that is very well done. And I think it's overall, pretty darn good. I did not grow up a big boxing fan. We've talked about it before. Of course, I watched Mike Tyson and I watched Evander Holyfield and Lennox Lewis. Boxing in the 80s and the early 90s used to be much more of a thing in the United States, but there's so much that is asking for people's attention these days that I don't know. I know boxing is still relatively big, but for me, when I got into boxing, to be quite honest with you, was there was a video game called Fight Night Round Four, and that's where I learned a lot of these old school boxers, and I played them, and I would always have to go against. I would be like Mike Tyson versus George Foreman, but I played Fight Night Round Four all the time on Xbox, and it was one of my favorite video games of all time. It had Teddy Atlas on there doing commentary, who Teddy Atlas very famously was in Mike Tyson's corner in the early '80s, and he's just a great mind and boxing mind. I mean, Teddy Atlas is one of my favorite people, but Fight Night Round Four is when I really got into it, and then from Fight Night Round Four, I started doing research and I started getting into it and started really understanding, how they call it, like the sweet science, and just kind of getting into, like I mentioned earlier, the kind of romantic side of what boxing, yeah, used to be before it got, quite corrupted and what it is now. I think if boxing had more of a kind of an NFL, MLB like structured, streamlined thing, I think boxing would be more popular. But I think that it's more of a one-time event, and there's a lot of people in the public, and I'm sure people will disagree that it just kind of has an air of being fixed sometimes.
Yeah.
Logan Paul versus Mike Tyson.
Jake Paul. Jake Paul. Let's
Oh,
not get into you for not knowing who the
both
brothers
these
are again.
motherfuckers look the same to me. All right, I don't fucking know Logan Paul, Mike Paul, Jake Paul. I don't fucking know
Paul.
Paul
No,
Paul.
no, I was just giving you a hard time, but
No, that's please. That's gonna be the running. That's gonna be a running joke of all these episodes. Be like, can you tell the difference between Logan Paul and Jake Paul? I can't, and I don't really want to.
no, I think a part of me only can now is because Logan Paul did or is still doing some WWE shit,
He
and he
is.
actually is put in the work. I'm not gonna, as much as I want to hate on him,
I've seen some
he's
shit.
yeah,
Yeah, I've seen some
and
shit.
you're like okay, but yes, I could care less about either of the Paul brothers, but yeah, I've also changed going back to your. Going back to boxing, never been a true boxing fan. Then again, I've
Nah,
never been a UFC fan either. Any of these, I
nah.
tried watching when it first started, when it meant to be like mixed martial, this fight against
Yeah,
this style against this style. But nowadays, I'm just like, yeah,
just give me
it's
fake
just ain't me.
wrestling. Just give me fake wrestling. At least with fake wrestling, I could follow it. There's a storyline and there's a plot. People are always like, "This is fake." I'm like, do you go into the movie theater and point at the screen and go, "This movie's not real"? It's like, no shit.
Oh, all right. Well, look at you expanding your horizons. You did a documentary. I'm proud. I mean, this is what we're here to do. Try different style of films. So,
Yeah.
and I know you have a very different style. You're next too. So
Oh my
let's
god.
get on to it. What was the second film that you watched this week?
So I'm a big Dave Lynch fan. So obviously with the passing of David Lynch, I had never seen, admittedly, the movie Eraserhead. Yeah, I know you and I have talked about before being like movies that you should have seen by now, and Eraserhead is definitely one of that for me. I've seen pretty much all of David Lynch's other works, and I'm a huge Twin Peaks fan. But I'd never watched Eraserhead, and Eraserhead is probably one of the most disturbing movies I've ever seen uh, in my life. The story is a guy, he kind of works in this weird industrial part of town or anything like that, but he knocks up his girlfriend, I guess, and come to find out, she ends up having his mutant baby, and then uh, through a series of circumstances, he's taking care of this very gross baby that won't stop crying at night. And it's all in black and white, and it's very surreal, and there's a lot of dream sequences. There's a lot of stuff that's in this movie that is actually used in Twin Peaks, and it reminded me of that. But just this mutant baby that he has to take care of, and just there were actually like horrifying scenes and cuts that I was not expecting in this movie that were just like so shocking. And it was just done in 1977, and it just had an impact to it. I think it's really more, I guess, of an allegory of, kind of fearing being a first time father. But it's done in a really, really disturbing way. And it devolves into all sorts of madness, from making out with a woman in a milk tub, to scenes from outer space, to things just being super weird. It is as David Lynch as it gets. It's David Lynch's first movie. And it is absolutely disturbing, and oddly provocative. It is a work of art. I don't know if I ever want to see this movie again. I'll be honest with you. I don't think I do. I think I'd watch Terrifier again before I watch this, because I feel
Whoa.
that with Terrifier, a lot of what was going on there was very surface level when it comes to violence. But there was something about Eraserhead that was way more psychological on top of the gross shit. That was really disturbing to watch, and just it's so unsettling. And I just kept thinking to myself, I'm like, my God, like I can't wait for this movie to be over. Not because it was bad, because I just didn't want to be exposed to this awfulness anymore. And just the baby wouldn't stop crying, and then eventually it starts like laughing to itself. There's even like this really gross sequence where it gets sick and it's like covered in pus and fucking grossness. And yeah, and then it just ends. So I mean, there's a lot of things that you could interpret it from the ending. It's David Lynch is known for having a real surreal take on everything, and having an approach to films that they should be like dreams. This movie definitely feels like a nightmare. If you're a fan of David Lynch and you like Twin Peaks, I think you should check this out, because there's a lot in the images that tie literally directly to the images that you see in Twin Peaks in season 1, 2, and much more The Return, which was the third season for Twin Peaks. I felt that Twin Peaks season 3 and Eraserhead were very, very closely tied together, because, as we know, Twin Peaks was canceled. I can't even believe it was on network TV, because it just kind of devolved into this strange thing that David Lynch does. But uh, when he got it on Showtime and Twin Peaks: The Return came on, he just basically was like, I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want, and it's going to be surreal, and I don't care. I'm going to have long takes. And, again, it was very, 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 very weird, and harkened back to this original work. So I would recommend it if you're a fan of David Lynch. I think if you're not a fan of David Lynch and you don't know what you're getting into, you might be kind of like not in the right part of town. So, yeah. But with that being said, I have to put it above When We Were Kings, and just behind Lawrence of Arabia, because, I do think that, by itself, it is, I, enjoyed it for what it was trying to do. I enjoy David Lynch, and I do find it to be incredibly well done, and I do find it to be a piece of art. Much more than something like When We Were Kings or Terrifier 2. Terrifier 2 again is a little engine that could for me, and I spoke on that at length. But Eraserhead is going to be right behind Lawrence of Arabia for me.
Wow, I'm surprised. And I'll be honest, I knew nothing of this movie. I don't know much of David Lynch's. I did not watch Twin Peaks. I think the
Surprised.
only, I think the only movie I might have seen of David Lynch that I can remember off the top of my head was Mulholland Drive, and
Mm-hmm.
that was a long time ago. I
What'd you
don't
think of that?
remember all. I don't remember. I think I remember liking it, but I'll be honest, Soto, I don't remember much of it. It's hard for me when you watch so many movies. You're just like, "What happened again?" Oh, yeah. So
That's a weird
I don't
one.
know. It might be one of those movies like if I watch it, it's like rewatching it. I don't know if that counts or not. But anyhow, I've just heard of the title Eraserhead. I never knew what it was about. So
It's it definitely is its own thing. It's a singular piece of film, and I think the follow up is probably Elephant Man. And then David Lynch went
yeah,
into, I don't know if you, did you ever see the original Dune with Kyle MacLachlan and Sting?
I think so.
That's also
But
David Lynch.
that was a long one. I don't know.
I prefer
Maybe
that one over the new Dune, but that's another podcast.
an Elephant Man. I honestly think I might have read because I think William Goldman wrote that screenplay, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
I had like a series like 9 screenplays from him. So again, I could be wrong about that. It just sounds familiar, but again, I don't want to go off on a tangent here because that's pretty much what we do. But yeah, no, I knew nothing of Eraserhead. I just saw that picture. I'm like, oh, okay, look at that hair. That's all I
Yeah,
thought about it.
yeah. I mean, me too. I really, it's interesting when you don't know what you're getting into with the movie and you kind of let a movie play out and you have no idea where it's going. And this is one of those movies that you can't predict where it's going, and it goes into it's actually for me a nightmare put on screen. I can picture this being this absolute nightmare. And it's done really well.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of good things. Well, I know some people either love him or hate him, but yes, I've heard a lot of good things about David Lynch.
Mm-hmm.
Some people then are like, I find him weird, but anyhow, Soto, going to your final film.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, before you talk about this, you texted me, obviously, hey, I just saw this. And then the way I read it, I was like, huh, because I did not know the first words were I saw. So I'm looking up
Oh
TV Glow,
yeah.
not to spoil what's about to come. So I'm like, wait. And then I saw the whole title, reread your text. I'm like, okay, here's what I need to find. So yes, not to spoil your final movie, but yes, I had to tell that story because I'm like, oh, he saw the TV Glow. I'm like, wait, did he see a TV show called Glow? Is it, so I'm like,
It's about
so
women
anyhow,
wrestling. Yeah. I love women
uh,
wrestling, as you know, but no, it was not a movie about women wrestling.
so tell me about this movie I've never even heard of. I saw the TV
Yeah.
Glow. What the hell is this about,
It's
Soto?
probably one of the newer movies I've seen. So I've heard about it. There was a lot of discourse about um, this one of the newer movies coming out called I think it's called Amelia Perez, which has a lot of Oscar buzz. And while I was looking, we'll discuss that movie at a different time, seeing as how you love musicals. But um, I had heard through that discourse, of which there's a lot of discourse of that film. He's nominated for 13. Uh, I saw the recommendation for somebody being like, and I can't believe that I saw the TV Glow wasn't nominated for something. And I was like, I saw TV Glow. Okay, well, I've seen it, in my streaming services that I had. And I was like, okay, horror, spooky, I thought, all right. And I read the synopsis and I was like, well, shit, is this going to be like Persona? Because I love Persona. I was talking about the
Yeah, I love
Midnight
that game
Channel. Like,
series.
all
Yeah.
right, Midnight Channel, let's do this. And, I'll say this. There's a lot of a deeper meaning to I Saw the TV Glow that I've read about, afterwards. And it's like, I understand. As a movie, incredibly shot, beautiful cinematography, top notch. I was all about this movie for about 2/3 of the way.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. I mean, I was like, let's go there. Like it's it's hard for me to describe the plot. Um, Other than saying that, there's this kind of kid, he's a loner, and he makes friends with this other girl, and their thing that they like is that they like this show called The Pink Opaque, and it's kind of like this Buffy show. But they watch the show The Pink Opaque, and it kind of brings them together. But then some aspects of The Pink Opaque start bleeding into real life, and so there's this whole like weird thing. And so again, I was like all about it. Loved the color scheme. I loved everything that was going on. And then it just fell apart for me at the third sort of act. And I was kind of thinking that it was going to be about something else, and then it kind of turned into something else, which I can respect, but it took the enjoyment out of it for me. And then the end just left me feeling super flat. Um, it's hard to talk about movies because sometimes you watch a movie and you're like, okay, love where this is going. And then if it doesn't go there and it's not about that, it's kind of like, is it your fault or the movie's fault? Because you kind of put your own expectations to it. I kind of fell towards you know what? I was all in on this idea, and then you kind of made it go in this other direction that I wasn't feeling, and then it just ended. That like at the end of it, I just felt very empty and kind of whatever. And I know that people, kind of describe this movie as, sort of it's kind of like a, a metaphor for, going through a transition, and the trans experience in general, which I respect and I'm all about. Um, but as a movie, I just didn't. It didn't stick the landing in such a way that I just felt very unsatisfied towards the end of it. Um, and that's why I ended up putting it at a pretty low ranking, right above La Llorona. Because again, I was just kind of disappointed with how it was going. It's one of the best shot movies I've seen in a long time. Yeah, cinematography wise, and everything else that was going on, and the music, and just the vibe. And I thought it was going to go in a different direction, and it didn't. And the direction I went did not like surprise me, or it did not engage me. And it was pretty disappointing. Towards the end. And I think that a lot of times with movies, for me, the last feeling that you're left with is kind of like the last feeling you have about the overall movie. I'm not saying every movie I've watched has like the best endings, but the overall vibe you walk out of the movie theater with. And for this one, the ending just kind of left me, in a place where I was like, that wasn't it. I can respect it as a piece of art. It is. I really try not to criticize too many movies unless it's like Uwe Boll, um, and it's Alone in the Dark. But this one just didn't land for me. And I would recommend that people watch this movie and kind of make their own opinion and see where it goes. Um, it might hit you differently, but for me, it just kind of, again, my expectations throughout the movie and how I was set up, um, it just didn't end up going where I thought it was going to go, and that's kind of it. So yeah, kind of low ranking for me. It's difficult. I wouldn't say this is a bad movie, but it's not a movie that I'll ever see again.
Kind of like my old ass.
Yeah, probably less funny though.
True. Now, before we end this video, so I went to your letterbox, by the way, and because you
Oh,
made a statement, because you said, this might be the newest movie. Now, I found out that this came out January 2024. You've actually seen 6 movies that came out after this.
wow,
Just in a
surprising.
little FYI. I love the fact that it actually goes in order.
Yeah, no, I've noticed that too. But yeah, I saw 2024 and I was like, wow, I'm watching a movie 2024. Like,
So
holy moly.
the remake of Roadhouse was 2024.
Jesus
Came out in
Christ.
March. That came out after, or that's newer than I saw the TV Glow. That's one of your 6 that came out after. Just a little FYI, because I know that was
Wow.
almost a year ago. But yeah,
What's my newest
um,
one? Probably what? Salem's Lot, probably? Is that?
exactly.
Yeah,
Sam's Lot
yeah.
is your newest one. Deadpool and Wolverine, The Fall Guy, just to give you your top 3. And then Monkey Man and Dune
Oh,
round out
God.
the 6
Monkey
before
Man.
I
That
saw the
wasn't that
TV
great.
Glow. Yeah, but Salem's Lot you knew it. But anyhow,
Anyhow.
I digress. But so no, that's gonna do it. I always like to end what we learned, and I am gonna say this after thinking about what I said in the beginning. My list, I it's hard for me to you kind of mentioned how do you rank these movies? Do you rank them how good quality, you know, enjoyment? And I think that last word right there is how I'm going to rank mine. Just the
Hmm.
enjoyment factor. Yes, I can respect that movies are great, but
Hmm.
if I'm not enjoying it, I'm like, why?
Yeah.
It's like I can't rate it high. It might that helps. Great production, great acting will make it a more enjoyable experience.
Yeah.
Because but that's again part of the reason why I put Scream 6 above Terrifier 2. I did. I just enjoyed it more than Terrifier 2.
I mean, that's
I,
valid. That's valid.
yeah,
I mean,
I
Terrifier 2 is not for everybody. And I wouldn't say it's enjoyable.
no, but it'll stick with me. I will remember a majority of those kills for the rest of my goddamn
Oh,
life.
it's like burning in my
And that's
retina.
why it's high. It's mid in my list, but it's going to be up there. And
Hmm.
we talked about it. We will see Terrifier 3 when it becomes free. So
Oh God, no.
we,
I
it's got to be
know, I
done.
know,
So
I know, I
it's
know. But
got to be done.
I'm not looking forward to it. I will do it. It's a Christmas movie. That should be interesting.
Maybe it'll be free for December. That'll be like
Oh
one of our
God,
final
Almighty.
films. If possible, maybe that'll be our 200th film. I know we're going to probably surpass it and do more, but if that was our 200th film, that's going to be fucking hilarious.
Fucking hell.
But let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
So we've now done 19 movies total
Wow.
so far out of 200. So we're definitely well on our way. And do you have any ideas what you might be watching this coming week? Any spoilers?
I have no idea. All I'll say is that I'm looking for something that has 3 act structure and that will have a beginning, middle, and end, and that I can be like, okay, cool. I can easily digest this. I don't know. I really don't know. I really, really don't know. I'm gonna wake up on the weekend and I'm gonna say, okay, like what's it gonna be? And I know it has to be something that I haven't seen, and I'm gonna go probably a little bit safer, but you never know. I might get crazy with it. But after Eraserhead and I saw the TV Glow, which I saw the TV Glow had a lot of David Lynch kind of vibe to it. I'd like to go to something that's a little bit more traditional 3 act structure. So more to come.
Yeah, I have no idea myself. I think I'm just going to get on the streaming services and
Yeah,
just whatever catches. But
yeah,
that's
that's
how
where
I
I'm
do
at
a
right now.
majority of
Yeah,
these.
you're entering
Um,
February. Yeah.
we are. But anyhow, that will do it for episode 4. For those who stayed this long, let us know what you thought about any of these movies. And if there's a movie you think we haven't seen that we should check out, that's legitimately a movie. Not one of these Tubi Sharks of the Corn kind of movies. Let us know. We might watch it. There is still one on my plate that someone suggested on Twitter that I'm going to probably put on my list soon once I get a chance. So, but until next time, just go enjoy some movies, people.